and Alex from Aurora. And when diving in, so the panel will be focused on scaling Ethereum together with like the emphasis on together. And if we think about the recent narratives, it has been very much like focused around L2 wars and like who's first, which scaling solution will make it. And when you introduce yourselves, I kind of want you to like obviously like describe your project like really shortly, but then also pick one of your favorite scaling solution project that's not yours and give them a little compliment.
So hello everybody, my name is Alex. I'm the CEO of a company that is called Aurora Labs. We're the main developers of the Aurora protocol. Aurora is an EVM compatible solution on top of Near protocol, which is horizontally scalable L1. And Aurora allows to launch your Solidity code on top of Near. So in terms of the scalability solutions that I really like and kind of believe in the future, these are ZK EVMs that are moving forward. We know that ZK Sync just recently rebranded in ERA, right? They launched their solution. So pretty cool stuff. I think that in the future ZK EVM would make a lot of sense. Yeah, that's it.
Hey there, my name is Harry. I'm one of the co-founders and the CTO of Offchain Labs building Arbitrum. And we're a optimistic rollup building on Ethereum, having a really exciting couple weeks since we, for the first time, surpassed Ethereum in the number of TPS and seeing a huge amount of growth there, which has been amazing. And in terms of, I mean, there's so much cool development going on in the layer 2 space that it's really hard to, pick and, talk about any one project. But I mean, certainly, yeah, I think certainly kind of seeing the amazing development on the ZK EVM side that's going on is kind of really really cool, and it's going to be really interesting to sort of like get to start actually playing around with these solutions because they still feel kind of magical in a way.
Hey everyone, I'm Brendan. I work on ZK R&D and ZK VM stuff at Polygon. And so, yeah, we're building a ZK VM. We're trying to basically run the EVM inside a zero-knowledge proof and sort of get cool security and scalability guarantees. And I actually have been really impressed by Arbitrum, being like very pragmatic, very shipping focused, and like obviously doing really good work. So.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much. So when diving in, so obviously everybody has like a little bit of a different approach on scaling Ethereum. We have like the Alt L1 approach, facing kind of this rollup-centric future that was laid out by Vitalik a couple of years ago. In your opinion, like, what do you think will be the approach that will succeed, or will we see fragmentation, or will we see more of like a complementation as the L2 space becomes really crowded? Whoever wants to start.
I mean, I definitely think that there's going to be a lot of different solutions. Like, it's the interesting thing is that like there are really fundamental trade-offs here. Like, in no way do I think that any one technology is going to kind of excel in all ways. Like, I think that there are going to be sort of really fundamental and kind of interesting sort of applications that are kind of have pros and cons and kind of gravitate more towards kind of one solution or another. I think that what we will hopefully see, and what I very much look forward to, is kind of standardization around things like interoperability, so that even while kind of individual chains might have their differences, they'll all kind of be connected and kind of be able to have a very smooth user experience traveling among them.
Yeah, so from my point of view, yeah, we are here on the stage 3 projects that are actually taking 3 different approaches. So our approach of Aurora is launching multiple EVMs. We just launched a thing that is called Aurora Cloud. It's something like, it's the similar approach of to the approach of Polkadot with parachains or Avalanche with subnets, right? So this is one way. In order to scale EVM, you need to have many EVMs, right? That's the typical approach. And then there is optimistic rollups and ZK rollups. There are indeed trade-offs, and independently of anything, fundamentally EVM is extremely hard to parallelize, right? Just because because of the concept of synchronous execution of the transactions, right? So I believe that in future we are going to see many different EVMs that are implemented in one way or another. And yeah, I'm absolutely with Harry that we need to work on the interoperability in between these different EVMs. So we need to work on development of the precompiles, the proper communication messaging in between these different EVMs. So that is super important because yeah, we are here already for many years with clogged Ethereum, and we really need to fix it off and move towards the mass adoption.
Yeah, so I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's like rollups versus alt L1s. Is that, or? Only I have the microphone now.
Yeah, the power.
Okay, but
Yeah.
So I think for me, like one thing that we think a lot about is like, so we have like the existing internet, and like we have this like proto internet of value, and like somehow like crypto doesn't feel like the internet, because you have to like, we have this like fragmented environment, and we have to like bridge stuff, and there's so much work that is required by the user, and so I think like if we think about like what the steps are to make the internet of value feel more like the internet of information, I think it's about like sort of providing security to the user in a way that they don't have to like think about it. And so I think that like the rollup, if we think about like L2 guarantees, is providing this like trustless movement and interaction between chains. Like I actually think that that's really important, and I think that will sort of like dominate in the future versus like side chains or alt L1s or.
Three? I would disagree a little bit with this stuff, because with the development of the technology, the boundaries in between sidechains and L2s are actually diminishing. I will take an example of the Rainbow Bridge, right? So the way how the Rainbow Bridge works in between Ethereum and Near is that there are light clients of Ethereum implemented on Near, there is a light client of Near that is implemented on Ethereum, right? And what it means that in order to break alt L1, which is Near, now you need also to break the client on the Ethereum chain, right? It is not the forward-looking thing, but you are able to submit also fraud proofs in the same way how L2s are submitted, right? So it means that you have launched a thing that made another L1 and L2. So kind of the differences in between them are becoming a little bit less strict. So I think that the technology is moving towards the direction of kind of unifying, and you know, maybe in a year or maybe in a couple of years we are going to stop just talking about L1s and L2s. And this is one end. On the other end, if you will take a look at the validators who are validating Ethereum, Polygon and other blockchains, many of them are professional validators. They are validating different blockchains. It means that their reputation and their losses are interconnected. So security of different blockchains, though not in code, but on the social level, they are kind of interconnected. So kind of the way how everything develops, we are coming as you know, to a social guarantees of security of multiple chains together. This is extremely good for smaller chains that are just only starting.
So I guess I want to kind of disagree a little bit on some of that, which is that that fundamentally kind of security is expensive. Security is very expensive. I mean, with proof of stake, it became a lot cheaper, but securing kind of consensus is not easy. And the Rainbow Bridge is a really impressive feat of technology, but fundamentally, one side could reorg and the other side wouldn't be able to react if the security assumptions are violated that the light client bridge is using. Because fundamentally they're not atomic. And that's kind of one of the magics of rollups, is that fundamentally they will reorg with the underlying layer. They are fundamentally one and the same from the perspective of the consensus mechanism, which kind of does create like this sort of much simpler and much cleaner model, I think, that lets you essentially create more value from one single piece of security layer, as opposed to kind of needing to have independent security layers that require each individually to be protected.
Yeah, so I actually think that that's a really, like to sort of echo Harry, I think that that's a really interesting point, and I concede that like we building rollups might be wrong about sort of like the minimal amount of security, but I think one really interesting thing that we've seen in the last year is during the Terra collapse, like this, you know, these sort of black swan events that like aren't that uncommon in crypto, like they had to stop the chain because validator, like the security of the validator set was compromised. And so like, I do think that there's like some indication that to the extent that we can like add additional security through fraud proofs or through validity proofs, like that is something to like aspire to and to sort of build in if we want like to aim for fault tolerance.
Maybe I can like expand on that, or just like have a like another questions that's sort of going into that direction. So if you, like the ultimate goal, if you want to name it like L2 or like other alternative scaling solutions, is to make Ethereum accessible to the next billion users. And we will get to a point where like the first entry point might not be Ethereum L1, but it might actually be like one of the scaling solutions. And the challenge here though is that all of these projects, they're a little bit differently run than the EF. They have different stakeholders, VCs, token distribution, governance models, and different security and risk assumptions. Like, what do you think is really important to ensure that we maintain the core values of Ethereum, thus like, censorship resistance and decentralization? That was a long question, sorry.
I mean, I think it's a great question, and I think it's something that like a lot of teams are going to be struggling with over the coming years. Like I think that kind of, at least sort of our view there is that like it fundamentally comes from the point of kind of neutrality being, to me, sort of the most important value, that we are building infrastructure, and that should not be sort of opinionated. It shouldn't pick favorites. It shouldn't kind of be biased. It should be neutral. And like, I think that and I hope that it's kind of a sort of philosophy that's relatively sort of nicely enforced by user choice and by developer choice, that fundamentally kind of when developers are thinking about what platforms they want to build on, the kind of developers want to be where other developers are. We build communities, and everyone wants to kind of be aligned. And sort of having that neutral, clean layer is sort of the common ground that brings developers together, as opposed to kind of pitting them against each other.
I think that the like Ethereum ethos of being like a net contributor, I think is something that like doesn't like necessarily come naturally to people coming from Web 2 or sort of like other areas. But I think it's really important to preserve that. And yeah, I think.
I would second this idea. Infrastructure should be neutral, right? However, it seems to me that the way how the crypto industry is developing forwards is that we are going to see kind of permissioned environments that are going to be launched by some teams in order to comply with the regulations. We are going to see fully YOLO environments and we would never know who actually launched these environments and so on. The most important thing is to give an opportunity for everyone to try to implement these different visions and try to execute there. And there is one particular thing that I would like to highlight that unfortunately right now is missing, and though kind of people starting to pick it up. And this is the concept of decentralized front ends, right? So smart contracts introduce this kind of decentralized backend thing where you are able to change the centralized backends of financials, for example, financial institutions, into smart contracts, right? Auditable, transparent, and so on. And now regulators are trying to crack down on the front ends for these things, right? While front ends are not different from the backends, actually. This is also the code. In case we will provide an opportunity for people to create decentralized front ends deployed on the blockchains and then retrievable from the blockchains and then rendered inside of the browsers, then it is going to complete kind of the cycle of everything. Yeah, there should be also the indexing layers and additional things, blah blah blah. Yeah, but this thing is missing right now, and because of this, all of the thesis of Ethereum, unfortunately, for people who are willing to go YOLO, they are not able to do this, right? And from my point of view, this is something that limits the freedom of the creators and of the developers. So once this piece is done, then we can say that infrastructure is fully neutral, and now developers are able to launch their networks the way they want to do it.
Any response to that one? Okay, good. I want to touch upon a slightly different aspect of the whole scaling approach as well. So coming back to the topic of the panel is like scaling it together, or like scaling Ethereum together. And that is one question for you, Alex. So Aurora implements the EVM as a smart contract on Near. And Near has been labeled as an Ethereum killer in the past. Do you see a contradiction, or like how do you see that?
So at the moment when I joined Near, like 2.5 years ago, I only heard of the times when somebody was naming Near as an Ethereum killer. I can tell that from being inside of the Near, there were never this aspect or this thought around killing Ethereum, and moreover, we are kind of executing exactly opposite. We were not putting, for example, inside of Aurora the base token Near, right? The base token of Aurora is ETH, right? So we are trying to give an opportunity for everyone to simply kind of being able to access additional markets, right, for Ethereum developers. This kind of thesis most probably evolved somewhere outside of Near, and maybe some maxis, either Near maxis or anti-Near maxis started to throw this thesis in there. Near ecosystem is extremely friendly. We are working together with Ethereum a lot. We have chats with Ethereum Foundation. We are discussing the plans, and my team is contributing a lot in EIPs, actually development. We are working right now heavily on additional, like the next version of the Web3 RPC that must, from our point of view, must be changed from the pool type of RPC into the push RPC. So we are here to help everyone. The thesis is separated from the team.
Okay, so not a narrative that you're pushing from Near. Okay, got it. But I guess the question is not only to all the L1s. We've been chatting earlier a tiny bit about one of the articles that Danny Ryan published, where he was also talking about, okay, what does actually prevent an L2 to become parasitic and actually sort of fork off and fork into its own L1. How do you view that, Arbitrum and Polygon?
I can speak from a little bit of experience. We were working on a ZK Alt L1 in 2021, and then joined Polygon, and we're extremely relieved to be working on sort of scaling Ethereum as opposed to building an Alt L1. But I think for us, it's just really difficult. Why would we fork away Ethereum when it's providing security for us? When it's sort of providing this rich and vibrant ecosystem and community. I do think that there's a danger of L2s becoming rent seeking, but it's really difficult to see sort of the road to that, given that I think the community is very sensitive to it, and some of the network effects which exist in crypto, liquidity, liquidity is fairly mobile, and so I hope that just doesn't happen.
Consensus algorithms are kind of a pain. That's one of the beautiful things of working on rollups, is that you can really sort of do a lot of interesting stuff while not having to deal with kind of all of the most painful issues that L1s have to deal with. And so like I think that like fundamentally sort of it's a really interesting balance in the kind of thinking about like Arbitrum as a chain versus like I don't. It is a chain, but it's also something I very much think of as just kind of an extension of Ethereum itself, and that like it's like kind of unimaginable to think about a world where like it wasn't. Like I think there is kind of like an interesting sort of other part of this, which is kind of a more complicated, interesting issue, which is basically sort of traffic moving away from L1 into L2, and what effect that has on kind of the security budget, and what effect it might have to have kind of most of the value of Ethereum and most of the transactions of Ethereum in L2, which I think is also a world which like is great, and we're basically just making more efficient use of Ethereum resources, but it is a really kind of interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I guess there's also like a lot of like open research questions still, and like a lot of like unknown dynamics that will probably only play out in like the next couple of years. I'm also looking at the time, maybe just like as like a last, the final closing question. What would you wish to see in 2023? Like I feel like we have like a narrative already sort of like evolving around ZK EVMs, but I mean there's obviously a lot more to scaling Ethereum. What do you anticipate, or like what would you wish to see from the entire ecosystem?
I think I think like people have this misconception that like ZK AVM is like a silver bullet for scaling, and the reality is that ZK AVMs are still bottlenecked by the Ethereum execution client, and so it would be really cool to see like further improvements on sort of throughput and scalability for clients, and you know that might take us further to scaling.
So Vitalik, I think maybe a month ago or something, put out a really great article that was about the stages of rollup decentralization. Currently, where we are today, rollups are not yet fully decentralized. The plan is there, the vision is there, but there's kind of work to be done to actually get to the point of kind of full and complete realization of the dream of rollups. And that's something that I think I want to see really driven at aggressively, and that I think kind of a large amount of progress I think will be made.
Yeah, that's pretty cool topic. Yeah, move towards the decentralized sequencers, right, and make sure that things are moving there. But for me, the most anticipated thing is improvements on the user experience side for everyone who is working with the blockchain. So things like protocol level meta transactions or account abstraction or whatever solutions that are capable of delivering to the users the absence of per transaction payments, which is a very like a concept that really destroys the user experience. This is something that I'm looking forward to.
Hey, cool. Thank you. And I think we're like perfectly on time. Thanks so much for coming.